My coverage of CES 2024 is brought to you by Cooler Master, Kioxia, Asus, and Gigabyte. I'm over at the Palms today to check out Cooler Master's offerings at CES 2024. They have some new products that they've been developing for a while. They have some products that are actually available now or coming out soon. Power supplies, cases, keyboards, even some really cool stuff like flight simulators that maybe you've never seen before. So let's see what they got on offer. Starting over here with some water cooling stuff, actually. This is a master loop demo system which they have put together in order to show off their new Mithril Open-Loop lineup of water cooling components. These products are nearly finished. They're just doing some final tweaks and tuning on them, but in terms of the look and overall functionality of them, this is what we should expect to see when these products launch, which is expected around the June timeframe, so later in Q2. Apart from the glorious, wonderful, just like spectacular looking test system that they have set up, they have both like square stuff and they've got like curved stuff, and I feel like the interaction and interchange between the two of those is looking pretty nice. And I somehow blanked and didn't even notice this when I first walked up to check things out. Since a lot of these fittings have sort of a squared off look on the ends, they actually have square tubing. Yeah, not round, but square. They have a longer section of it there too that I was able to kind of get a shot of the end of, but I thought that was unique in and of itself, and you might think that these would only be usable with like 90-degree angled fittings and stuff like that, but no. They actually have started testing out bending this. I was shown a picture of the bend. They're still working on like the proper technique for that and everything. And to aid with stuff like bending, if you're going to be doing a custom water loop, they have this little tool which you can adjust from 90 degrees or whatever angle you see fit, pop out this little centerpiece and then lock it back in place and then bend along that axis. The radiator setups are pretty unique. First of all, they are like, this is really, really heavy, very chunky here. But if you're building like a lighter colored, maybe white or silver theme, just flip it and show off that side. Or if you're building like an all black system, flip it and show the other side. So you've got two finishes on either side, depending on the aesthetic look that you're going for. And it looks like we got 280 and 360 millimeter versions of that. Beyond that, the fittings down here looking nice and clean. Again, quite chunky, a squared off look as demonstrated in that system. And these, of course, are the hardline fittings for those square tubes, because you got to have a square aperture there in order to attach your square tube. That's kind of cool. Beyond that, we got some CPU blocks down here, a GPU block, and there in the back we have some pumps as well as a pump and reservoir combination. They will also have Mithril coolant. This is clear coolant, but colored, so they don't have pastels or anything like that in there that might clog up your line, but you can get some colored coolant if you so desire. I was actually complimenting them for using clear coolant in the demo build that they put together, but they were actually planning on using purple in there. They just, it didn't come through in time. But for you custom water cooling enthusiasts out there, check out the Mithril line. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. Let's talk about some cases next. Here on this podium in the middle, we have the HAF 700 Evo White. HAF 700 Evo has been available in black for some time. It's a popular, large, full-size case featuring support for both your standard ATX, eATX motherboards, basically built for a really big system. So if you're doing a high-end desktop, or if you want to wedge a lot of water cooling, something like that in there, then the HAF 700 White might be something that suits your tastes. Of course, tastes in cases can vary from time to time, which is why I'm trying to give you a good look at all sides of this beast, and it has some unique accents on the front as well. You can also see plenty of I/O up there with your power, your reset, mic, headphone, 4 USB Type-A connectors and a Type-C, and look at the fans. They're 200 millimeter fans. Is this a trend that's returning to the PC market? Big old fans? I like big old fans. I like air cooling. 200 millimeter fans can move a lot of air and they don't need to spin at as high of RPMs. So it's a great way to cool down a case, and I'm glad to see the Cooler Master is sticking with that. We also have the final version of the Ncore 100 Max. This is a mini ITX tower style chassis. And if you watched my coverage at Computex in 2023, you might have seen these. They were actually a little bit bigger in the initial version, and they did have sort of a turquoise finish that they were playing around with. They've decided to not do the turquoise finish. They're just trying to pick colors that are going to be a little bit more widely popular. So we have sort of a dark bronze finish on this one. We have more of like a gunmetal grayish finish on the one on the left. Pulled the side panels off of this one to get a look at the interior. Since these are ready for shipping, this model actually includes the packing, the way it will be packed. So it includes an all-in-one liquid cooler. It includes an 850 watt power supply that does have your 12VH power connector if you're going to install an NVIDIA 40 series graphics card. And part of the way that they've kept the footprint of this so skinny and small is that all-in-one liquid cooler, which you can see the block 4 down there, which is going to ship with this foam around it to keep it protected, and then your motherboard's going to go right there. But they also have a custom radiator fan solution for that up here in the top, because they are dealing with a smaller area to work with than you typically would with a 120 or 240 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. And then if we rotate it around, you can see on this side, look at all that room for graphics cards. Yes, full-size GPUs can easily fit in here, even up to an RTX 4090. And one last case to show you guys here, the Qube 500 flat pack case. Have you guys seen this? Cooler Master designed a case that could be flat packed. I've seen this at a couple different shows already. I haven't had a chance to build in this case yet, but it has received very positive feedback so far since they've started launching them. And they're now working on wood finishes for these. So this black version has sort of a medium grain wood finish on it, and they're talking about also doing a white version of this. It's going to use more of like a balsa or a lighter grain wood to blend in with like white finish on the actual chassis itself. And again, the Qube 500 is designed to be flat packed, so that saves on shipping costs, and that's a big part of the cost of cases. It's actually worked into the price of most of the cases you buy out there is the price to ship them. Let's talk about power supplies, because Cooler Master makes lots of those, and they're pretty dang good at it. On this side are power supplies that are already out, already available on the market, at least the black versions. So this is like V-Series SFX units over here, VSFX GX series right here. These are getting updated to have a white version too. White versions right there. Those should be available, I believe, by the end of this month. So for anyone building an all-white system where you want a power supply that matches, even if you're talking about an SFX unit, Cooler Master has you covered. Internals and everything for these units should be the same in terms of wattage and efficiency ratings and everything like that. But the other update is that these are being updated to ATX 3.1 or PCIe 5.1, and the 5.1 references the Optimaline 12VH power connector. This is now 12V 2x6, the slightly updated variant of that has more recessed sense pins so that it's not seated all the way. It won't feed power through and should hopefully reduce or eliminate those melting issues that come up from time to time with 40 series graphics cards. So glad to see Cooler Master is updating those, but let's take a look over here at these units that are currently in development and possibly potentially launching soon. We'll start with this one, the X Silent Edge. It's a silent power supply. There's no fan in there. Completely fanless, completely passively cooled. Interestingly enough, if you were to purchase this unit and run it in the US on a 110 volt connection from your home, you'd be limited to 850 watts, but it's actually rated at up to 1100 watts if you use a 220, 230 volt connection. So if you're located in the EU or places that have that as a standard, that's okay. Or you can get that set up in the US as well. You just need to make sure that your electrician has wired up some outlets for you for that purpose. The Cooler Master is trying to make even higher wattage passively cooled units, so hence the up to 1100 watts on that, which is really impressive. But you can take pretty much the same internal components, add a fan, and then you can crank the wattage up even more. So here's a 1300 watt X Silent Max right here. Also with the ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1 support. So some very impressive design work that they've done here. They actually have an exploded version of these power supplies, which they're continuing to refine, because they say they even have a 2000 watt passively cooled unit that is in development, but that one's still a little bit further off in terms of bringing to market. These two units should be available really soon, about March time frame for those. And then there's this one over here, the X Mighty, which is a 2800 watt power supply. Yes, you heard me right, 2800 watts in the single unit, which is absolutely ridiculous. Look at the it's a single 12 volt rail too. 233.3 amps on a single 12 volt rail is pretty absurd for anyone who's considering like a desktop home use computer or something like that, which is why this is sitting sort of in the crossover point between super premium consumer and server grade, which is why it has added things like a PM bus connector right there so that your server can monitor your power supply's health and notify your system admin if you have a failure or something like that. It also has a USB connector that you can set up so the Cooler Master software can help monitor the power supply. It has not one, not two, not three, but four 12VH power connectors, 600 watts each. Do your math, 600 watts times 4 is 2400 watts, which means you still have 400 watts to spare if you want to hook up like 4 RTX 4090s or something, which is absolutely like pointless if you're talking about a gaming system. But for a workstation or a render box or something like that, having one unit that has those higher end server features that can power up to 4 RTX 4090 grade GPUs at the same time. Dang, that's really impressive. Of course, to push 2800 watts, again, you're not going to be able to have that plugged into a standard outlet in the US. You need a 220 or 230 volt connection, so a little bit easier to plug this in and fire it up if you're in the EU. If you're in the US, again, talk to your electrician, get your house wired up. If you're the master of cooling like Cooler Master, you got to figure out ways to cool down lots of different things. Graphics cards, CPUs, memory maybe. What's on display here though is actually a cooler for an SSD. It's tucked right in there. You know that sensitive spot on your motherboard right above the GPU where they often put M.2 slots? That can be a difficult place to keep things cool, especially if you're running like a Gen 5 SSD that actually gets hot enough to overheat and throttle itself. Cooler Master is working with Murata, who has been doing a lot of design work with vapor chambers. So what we're looking at here is a vapor chamber cooler designed for an SSD that is actually not like super tall. Not like a massive heatsink that's sticking up on top, not requiring like a supplemental cooling fan or something like that. They have a demo on screen here showing that when it's actually heating up, it's keeping the SSD about 5 degrees cooler. It's also doing a better job of dissipating that heat rather than having hot spots in the middle. It has a cover on the top, as you can see with this one, but you can run it without the cover and just have the heat fins sticking up there. And this is the vapor chamber itself, which is keeping very skinny, very, very small. So that's pretty much the whole unit right there, minus the cover, and that even has an SSD, like wedged in the middle. Vapor chamber technology is also being applied over here in a slightly more traditional fashion with the MA824XT Stealth. Very large air cooler right here, as well as Project New V8 down here, which uses a vapor chamber design. So the prototype for this one was actually shown off at Computex. You guys might remember the heatsink that they had painted with color changing paint. And as it heated up, it changed from black to sort of a copper color. They have actually decided to bring something similar to that to market because that actually got a lot of attention and people thought it was pretty cool. Rather than painting all the fins though, which would hurt the thermal properties of the cooler a little bit, they've just done the color changing with this front plate right here. Unfortunately, the ambient temperature in the palms right now is too cool for that to actually take effect. But if this was in a case, you'd see color changing start to take effect. And they say it's a nice sort of blue finish on there. And I wish we could give you guys a little bit better demo of that. But for anyone who watched my Computex coverage of Cooler Master back in June of 2023, you're going to get at least a similar effect with that. And you're also going to get an extremely large, beefy 2-fan cooler with a vapor chamber tucked into the bottom. And this uses staggered fans. This is a 120 millimeter Mobis fan and a 135 millimeter here. They're still putting the finishing touches on this one, but I am told end of Q2 probably we'll see this one. So April, May, June timeframe. And then we've got the new V8 down here. Cooler Master has had variations of their V8 CPU cooler over the years, and this one looks different than the other ones. It's using Mobis 120 fans, it's got a push-pull configuration, and it again has a vapor chamber down on the bottom. Those 4 vertical pipes are for the vapor chamber. It's got a couple supplemental heat pipes on the sides just for further heat dissipation up to the fin array at the top. They say they really, really want to get this one right, so still in development. We're looking probably Q3 timeframe for that one. Cooler Master has some really unique products, and among them is this drum kit. So this drum kit they actually had on display back at Computex. I didn't get a chance to try it out then. The drum kit is a standalone unit that you can purchase separately, but what Cooler Master has actually been working on is the chair back there, and that's why this is called the Throne X. So it obviously looks like it will be very comfortable on your bottom. I'm going to check it out in just a second, but it's connected up to a unit over there. I am not by any means a professional musician or drummer, but if you're playing along with music, this can act as a metronome to send vibrations through your body to sort of keep the time, or if you're just making your own beats. So I'm going to give this a shot. I am told there are 4 modes on this thing. Metronome mode. There's also a mode where you can make your own beats. There's also a mode where it can pick up the beats from if you're playing with a band, or it can also go by the music that you're playing back. Got my sticks, and we're supposed to go. But I don't know what to do after that. Oh,
You feel it?
I feel it. I hear music. So I got some music playing in the headphones, and it's vibrating my bottom. I can feel it goes through your whole body, but it mostly starts in your bottom. This is like the one drum beat I know. It's got a little handheld adjustment here, so you can turn the BPM up or down. It's something a little bit more simple. I got one beat I could do. We love you, Las Vegas. All right, that's all I got. Over here we have Dynex. These are racing simulator chairs, and you might have seen this in my coverage of CES last year. I think I briefly showed it in my Computex coverage as well. These are going to have a base cost for just the frame of around $2,000, but Cooler Master will kit these out and outfit them depending on the actual user and their needs and whether or not they want like the nicest chair or the steering wheel or the actuators down at the bottom. So I'm told you can kit one of these out for around $10,000 pretty well, but they do range all the way up to like $30,000 or more depending on the customer, depending on whether you're talking about an individual who's looking at one of these or maybe like a sim racing setup, people who are starting up a business and they want to get a bunch of these for use. Also, by the way, that like upper cost of $30,000 is going to include not just the racing chair and the pedals and actuators and everything, but also like an entire Cooler Master computer. So they can range up in price, but they are pretty incredible when they're actually in use. The frame is just incredibly sturdy, which allows them to use either the 2-inch actuators that we have over here, which is pretty suitable for most of your racing simulations, but they also have this one over here set up for flight simulation, and they've basically taken the same frame and they've just popped down some 6-inch actuators for a larger range of movements, and that allows you to play games like Microsoft Flight Simulator, which I have a demo of you guys for right here. So if you're into sim racing and if you're into this type of thing, Cooler Master has a really excellent solution here. And one of the nice features of this one is that by undoing a couple bolts at the back, you can actually adjust this entire internal cradle right here that has the chair and the steering wheel and your pedals on it. Rather than adjusting everything individually, you can angle that up or down, so depending on the game you're playing and the simulation you're running, different positions are better for that, or just for personal comfort. So that's a nice feature too. Last thing I wanted to show off here was an update on Cooler Master's MasterHub. If you guys didn't see my videos, Computex CES, they are building a modular device. It's being aimed primarily at streamers like Pseudo's streaming right behind me right now using this setup, but it also has a wide variety of applications for content creation or controlling your PC in general. It's a modular unit, it has a base frame, then it has a bunch of devices that you can attach on top that have buttons that you can customize, program. They have software already that's currently in beta. MasterHub will be officially launching in June this year, so we do still have a little bit of wait, but they brought things a lot closer to being ready to go to market. You might notice if you compare it to my earlier video on this that they've updated the aesthetic and the design of the device, but it still has that functionality where you can pop on the units wherever they need to be connected. It has a contact point in the back to immediately sync up with the software. The initial launch is going to be somewhat focused on streaming. They're going to have support for plugins with like OBS, but they will be adding stuff like plugins for Adobe software as they go along later in this year. But guys, that is all the time I have for Cooler Master here at the Palms Hotel Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you so much for watching my coverage of CES 2024. I have more coming at you real soon. A huge thank you to Cooler Master for sponsoring my coverage, as well as my other sponsors, Gigabyte, Asus, and Kioxia. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. Check out my playlist if you want to see all of my content on CES 2024. And we'll see you all in the next one.